Hey guys, Level Cap here. Today we're going to be talking about the new PvP mode for Ghost Recon Wildlands called Ghost War. Now, despite there being a little graphic in the lower left-hand corner that says sponsored by Ubisoft, this video is in fact not sponsored by Ubisoft. It was recorded from a stream that was sponsored. Now, this is a long-awaited free PvP update to the game, and what's interesting is that Ubisoft is actually making it a standalone component as well. So if you don't want to buy Ghost Recon Wildlands, you can get this version of the game on its own, which is kind of cool. Sometimes PvP appeals to players who are not interested in the co-op / single-player aspect of the game. Now, personally, I really enjoyed the co-op aspect of Ghost Recon Wildlands, but I played through it enough and I have no real desire to go back to it. So in my book, there wasn't much point in going back to playing Ghost Recon Wildlands until the PvP component came out. Now, of course, this was in development during the Battlegrounds rise to fame, and everybody was thinking, you know what, that Wildlands engine is so lush and beautiful, it would make a great Battle Royale style game. But the developers stuck to their game plan and went ahead with their 4 vs 4 TDM style game mode, and I gotta say it's actually pretty fun. Despite not being a huge fan of third-person mechanics for competitive games, the Intel game in Ghost Recon Wildlands Ghost War, God, that's a mouthful, is so strong that the third-person camera doesn't give you as big of an advantage as it does in other shooters. It does still give you an advantage, but it's more manageable because the drone game and intel game and spotting game is so strong that you're mostly reliant on working with your teammates, spotting and marking your enemies rather than just seeing them through the third-person camera. And admittedly, the intel game can take a little while getting used to. When I first loaded into a jungle map, we were playing against like a set team of rank 11s, which is the highest you can get into the beta right now, and basically they just spotted the crap out of us in the jungle and mowed us down like easy peasy. And I was thinking like, man, this is bullshit. I was hiding and these drones just kept spotting me and I couldn't basically get off the minimap. However, once you start getting used to the drone meta and how drones work, not only can you try and avoid them a little bit more strategically, but you'll also probably be running significantly more drones on your team. So they'll be spotting you, but you'll be spotting them. And there's also ways to get unspotted. If somebody's running a tank on your team, they can activate an ability which actually absorbs all the spots from your teammates and basically just makes it so that you're the only player spotted. So there's some interesting meta based around this, and when I was playing on a team of newbies, we obviously didn't have the right strategies going forward, but as I started playing more and unlocking more classes and new abilities, I was able to try and mess around with some of that meta and even the playing field. And playing on the jungle maps, although a bit chaotic, were really fun when you had classes that were really good at gathering intel. Now, I don't really care who you are as a gamer or what kind of shooters you like, you have to give Ubisoft some props for doing a full-on jungle map in a multiplayer shooter. This is not only a dangerous thing to do, it's difficult to do. Rendering all this foliage, plants, and trees at a good frame rate for competitive shooters is not easy to do. And I gotta say, the engine ran really, really well. I was getting between 90 and 100 FPS the whole time, pretty much closer to 100 FPS at 1440p with high graphics settings. Later, I started messing around with the graphics settings, putting some stuff on low, and I will say I'm a little disappointed by the graphic disparity on PC. If you want to play on high graphics, it looks great, but it's going to be incredibly hard to see people in the jungle. You set it to low, turn down all the shadows and lighting and textures, and it becomes way easier to see people. This has always been a problem on PC shooters. Sometimes it's more of a problem on certain shooters than others. It's going to be a bit of an issue for Ghost War on the PC platform. I imagine console is probably going to be one of the more enjoyable places to play this game because not only will it look good, but you'll know that everybody else is seeing the exact same visuals as you. Now, something that was really cool about playing the open world game was that it had a really beautiful day-night cycle that would cycle through relatively quickly. Well, every single multiplayer map is the same. If you play a match and it goes on long enough, the time of day will change. And I gotta say, jungle at night is even more difficult than jungle at day. It's fun, but it gets crazy. So it's kind of neat to see the atmospheric conditions of your map change as the round goes on. I gotta admit, I wasn't as big of a fan of nighttime mode because it meant that the games became almost completely reliant on intel rather than visual target recognition because it's really hard to see people at night, unless, again, of course, you turn down your graphics and up your brightness and all that kind of stuff. I'm personally not a big fan of games that allow you to mess with the graphics settings so much to give you a huge visual advantage. You can see from this gameplay here, I've turned a lot of my graphics settings down to try and make it easier to see my opponents, and admittedly the game looks a lot worse. It's just nowhere near as impressive as it used to be, but man, is it easy to spot guys. Now you can see here that I'm playing the sniper class, which has an entirely different set of abilities than the other classes out there. What's really cool about this game is that it's taken some of the base visual effects of the ways you can customize your character from the campaign and turn them into specific looking, very distinct classes that all have very different abilities and weapons. Now the sniper is all about one-shotting people from across the map. No big surprise there. In fact, the sniper doesn't have some of the better intel gadgets. There's other classes that have really high-end drones. You can call in mortar drones. Point Man is a really good assault player. He has extra health and an assault rifle that just tears through people. There's a pretty big discrepancy between some of the armor and weapons in this game, but it does balance out. Because again, as I said, intel's so important. Usually the classes that get the best intel abilities have some of the weaker weapons and lesser hit points. Ranged effectiveness is also something important to consider. On the jungle map, you can get close quarters, so a lot of the classes that have some of the weaker SMGs can still be fairly effective. So it might make more sense just to go pure intel on a jungle map. But on this map here, you can see that it's got a lot of long range, long sightline areas. You're going to want snipers and the assault class with his very accurate, very powerful assault rifle. You can also run with DMRs and stuff like that also do really good damage at range. But this is where some of the SMGs might become less effective, and you have to rely more on your teammates, allowing you to push up and get in closer so you can do some real damage with SMGs. It's not to say that SMGs can't do anything at range, they're just not going to be on par with sniper rifles or assault rifles. Now each match consists of 3 games. It's the best of 3, so if you win the first 2 rounds, you're not going to go on to the 3rd match. And this can go incredibly fast, or it can take significantly longer. It depends on how passive the teams are being, what kind of map you're playing on. If it's a map that's very hard to push up on with limited cover, or if there's tons of cover and chaos, it could go really quickly. What's an interesting element to the game, though, is that when your teammates get killed, they go into a down but not out state. So you can always revive your teammates. They'll come back with half health, but they can pick up more health and ammo around the map if they go there. What's interesting is that dead bodies can then be booby-trapped by certain classes. And in addition to that, camping dead bodies can become a viable tactic. If you're a class that doesn't have any sort of intel ability, so you're not going to be able to track down your opponents, kill one of them and then basically camp the body, and sure enough, a teammate will probably come by at some point and you can take them out. I've had games that have been in a 1 versus 4 or 1 versus 3 scenario, and I was able to kill a bunch of my opponents and then use that distraction to go revive my teammates, and we came back. It's really cool to watch the ebb and flow of a round, because you might see half your team get wiped out right at the start. It doesn't mean you're out of the game. You can always revive your teammates and totally come back from an underdog position. Now, because the maps are fairly large and it's only a 4 versus 4 game mode, there's plenty of places to hide, and you would think that this game would actually play it a lot slower than it does. But whenever you fire your weapon, or at least an unsuppressed weapon, you get pinged with a little yellow pinger there. So you can camp and potentially kill one of the enemy team's players, but your location is going to get pinged, and then their teammates can come in and try and take you out. So you got to be careful whenever you go in for a kill. The enemy's going to have an idea of where you are, so just assume that they're moving to your new location and either change your location or set up for an ambush. The sound is actually quite good in this game, and I was able to pinpoint where my enemies were approaching from and gun them down. However, sometimes you will be playing in windy or rainy weather effects, and that can kind of ruin the sound game as well. So there's a lot of different variables that you have to consider. Now, as far as my overall impressions of this PvP game mode, I like it right off the bat. I had a lot of fun playing it. It took a little while to sort of get used to the rule set and the meta and how much spotting and intel is going to be a part of the gameplay. But once you start to work within those parameters, it becomes much more fun, and you can see why Ubisoft did that, so that they can have these very detailed, lush environments, yet you can find your opponents still in a decent amount of time, so the gameplay doesn't become too campy. Overall, I think it's an excellent free addition to Ghost Recon Wildlands. As a standalone, I hope it does well. I think it's really fun. The class gameplay is good. I like that it's TDM with some interesting tools in there to find your opponents and a constant down but not out state for your teammates. Makes it really interesting and allows for a lot of really fun comeback moments, which I had while I was playing. So I think Ubisoft has really got a good formula going here, and I look forward to seeing what more comes from it and the new classes that are going to come out when this game comes out of beta. Now, of course, many people, myself included, were really excited about the prospects of a Battle Royale Ghost Recon Wildlands game. The engine is just so darn beautiful, and there's so much player customization and cool things you can do in the game already that it seems like it would have just fit the Battle Royale formula perfectly. Ubisoft did not go this route. We don't know if they are planning on going this route in the future. Obviously, shoehorning a Battle Royale game into your open world game isn't necessarily always the easiest thing to do, and supporting a large number of players can be quite difficult as well. But I still think it would be cool if Ubisoft maybe thought about doing this down the road, especially since this is going to be a standalone game. They could easily make a Battle Royale that was standalone or just incorporated as part of Ghost War. Anyway, this game should be coming out of beta tomorrow, so if you already own Ghost Recon Wildlands, well, you get a free PvP mode that's actually quite good, and if you don't own it already, well, you can check it out or just check out the PvP mode on its own. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.